But this is the nonsense that they routinely do. So it says it hasn't even convened its first meeting, but already the Disinformation Governance Board, a small group created to work on a complicated problem, has become a big headache. What's the complicated problem? Because one of the biggest sources of disinformation is the government. And we can look back at for something like like the Iraq War. Like I said, one of the biggest sources of disinformation is the government. So in this article, they're talking about how he used, of course, January 6th as part of the reason why this is needed, because we need to combat disinformation. Once again, this is what I say. If people are gullible, if people are dumb, that's on people. If people are just listening to something somebody's saying without actually vetting it, that's on them. You can't like this at some point it has to be either people as adults have to just be smarter, and if not, have to deal with consequences of stupid decisions, or like there is no that's it. People just have to be smarter. Because this idea that oh yeah, they just believed they believed disinformation. Okay, well they could have done research. But guess what? On all sides, there's a bunch of people that aren't doing research, that aren't actually looking into to matters. They are listening to sound bites and running with them. They're reading headlines and then calling themselves experts, and then just acting like, okay, yes, this is what it is. Okay, wait, how do you know that? Well, yes, because this article says this. Wait, did you actually read the article, or you just read the headline? And even if you read the article, did you check the sources? Did you check the veracity? And are you reading in between the lines to be able to make a determination as to whether the information contained in the article is accurate? But um, so he's talking about malicious internet activity that fed virtually every problem the department faced. And so they're talking about the domestic violent extremists threatening members of Congress, human smugglers enticing migrants by spreading lies about U.S. border policy. So at that point, it tells me like they probably threw that in there because they said, "Hey, if we throw this in there, the right will actually like the Disinformation Board." Uh, Fortunately, that one didn't work. But hey, listen, I've seen a lot of this stuff that the government does, where it's couching up these authoritarian policies, behind cultural war issues, and people are going for it. So in this case, that particular one didn't work. They're talking about Russian intelligence officers posting false claims about U.S. elections, but once again, that's up to people to actually do the work, do the research, and come to decisions. If your educational system has done its job, correction, if your educational system's job was to actually help people become to critically think, then this wouldn't be so much of an issue. But if your educational system is intentionally designed to dumb people down, to just obey authority, okay, this is how we get to a position where now you have to worry about, oh no, if they see a headline, they might just do something stupid. Uh, DHS leadership stood up a working group on the issue, and so basically what they wanted to do was create this group that they're saying is we're not going to have power. We're just going to make suggestions. Yeah, yeah. That because even if that's how it starts, that two things. That's not how it's going to end, and the second thing is that's not how you even intended to end. That's how you intended to operate while everybody's looking. As soon as everybody looks away, that's when you're going to start making changes, and then suddenly people are going to look back, and it's going to be a completely different entity. So they said it's Washington. So the working group concluded there needed to be another new group working on these issues. And so he said they're not sitting there saying, "Hey, what should we do about Russian disinformation?" Focusing on XYZ. He says they're focusing on information being gathered and collected under different sets of legal authorities, and says, "What's the appropriate way to share this information so we're not in conflict?" They are, like I said, this is all a smokescreen to basically put certain individuals, because if you look at what's happened with social media these past couple of years, you realize, and that's kind of where they played their hand, they overplayed their hand, because we can look and see, okay, wait a minute, no, we've seen this one before. Like, yeah, I've seen this before. So it's not gonna, a bunch of people aren't going to fall for this, especially people on the right, because this is a creation of the left designed to do the bidding of the left. But what really did it, what really just absolutely lit the spark and blew that powder keg up, was who they decided to pick as the head. They said, "Hey, we're gonna pick the head of the Disinformation Board to be Nina Jankowicz." So she had managed programs for Russia and Belarus for the National Democratic Institute, and she had advised the Ukrainian government. So they call her a disinformation expert. I'm actually going to talk more about some of her activities as a different disinformation expert prior to becoming the head of this DHS, this Disinformation Governance Board. But when they broke the news of her being hired and of the board's existence, the powder keg was lit, because people started looking at who she was. And so it's like she had stuff on TikTok, which was putting commentary on disinformation, and she did like a parody of a Mary Poppins song. And so Jen Psaki is, of course, one of the people that comes out and defends her work. On May 2nd, so according to this political story, on May 2nd, the department released a brief, a fact sheet that said the board was set up with the explicit goal of ensuring that protections for Americans' rights and privacy are appropriately incorporated across DHS disinformation-related work. If we've watched what they've done with social media, if we've watched what they've demanded with social media, we know that's complete and utter bull. We know that's a lie, because we watch what they've done with social media and the demands they've made of social media. For instance, I think it was like last year when Jen Psaki's talking about, oh, if somebody says something, spreads disinformation on one social media site, the other social media site should coordinate and ban them from their platforms as well. Oh, yes, but we want to respect the people's First Amendment rights. Come on. That's clearly, obviously not true. Obviously that has never been true. But what's even more enlightening is that if we just look at what's happened over the past couple of years, of how certain things that were disinformation actually turned out to be accurate information, and then the official information turns out to have been the actual disinformation. And we've seen this repeatedly. But there's no acknowledgement of that. There's no accountability for that. So when an expert is telling people to do something or telling people not to do something, which actually puts them at risk, no accountability, zero accountability, none, not a lick. But then that same public official is somebody that they are then relying and putting on this pedestal as the only reliable source. Thank you for checking out this episode of Jailhouse Law. If you would like to check out the entire live stream, you can click on the screen now, or you can click on the link in the description box below. Let's break these chains.